What reads my jacket? The war paints on my face. Satan's cross around my neck or starts on metal blades. A bullet polygonal, a two around my hip. A skull up from a burial, and right before my dick. Like total death I look, my ornaments complete. At last I'm fit to make the crushing.
How's it going, YouTube? Brainsmasher, back with you again. Saddle up, let's do this. How about a collection update? It's been about a month. I have no excuse for not doing this for over a month. We're gonna be banging our heads to Requiems of Revulsion, the tribute to the almighty Carcass. This came out on Death Vomit Records in 2001, and this is one of my favorite tribute albums of all time. I think a lot of these bands do almost as good versions of Carcass songs, and the lineup on here is just a who's fucking who of grindcore. This is right now is Regurgitate doing Genital Grinder. We've also got Rotten Sound. I fucking love them in that era. Murderworks is one of my favorite grind records. Hemorrhage, Nasm, Cattle Decapitation, Exhumed, Disgorge, who we're going to talk about in a minute, Machitazo, General Surgery, Necrony, Impaled, Pig Destroyer, Vulgar Pigeons, Bodies Lay Broken, Engorged, Dead Infection, Evulsed, Regurgitate. Get this, it's fucking great, it's totally affordable, and the Carcass fucking rules. It's almost like I wore out my Carcass albums. I don't know, I don't listen to them very often, Ricky Putrefaction and whatnot. So to hear other bands do them with a little bit maybe tighter performance, better production is kind of refreshing, kind of a little bit more palatable way to enjoy the music and the timeless classics of Carcass. So let's get into it. Alphabetically, we're going through my CD collection. This is episode 40, and where we left off last time was Disembowelment. So we are getting into the Disgorge. By the way, these are all going to be Dis, I just realized. So Disgorge, this is Cranial Impalement. This, I don't know, is this the more well-known Disgorge between Mexigorge and Caligorge? I don't know, I never really cared a whole lot for either one of those bands, although I do kind of wish I still had a copy. I got a fly problem in here, of Chronic Corpora Infest, but my buddy Wayne sent me this in a box of goodies for my birthday one time, and it's pretty good, brutal death metal. This is some of the fastest grind going around back in 99 or so, when this came out, but you know, I probably haven't played this in 10 or 15 years, maybe. This is a little loud. But yeah, came out on Extremities Productions, distributed by Repulse. Good stuff. Next, we've got a kind of an interesting band. This is Discenter with their album Desecrated. Breath of Night Records put this out, which was Andrew Harris's label, or Akhenaten from Judas Iscariot. Merciless Productions in Germany also put this out. Now this is a Chicago blackened death metal band, and yeah, they're not that interesting, they're not all that groundbreaking or anything, but when it comes to American black death metal, I think this really defines it a lot more than bands that I think a lot of people often reach for to define the genre. They're a death metal band in that they're tuned lower and they just pummel away and trudge through their songs barely, but there's a little bit of blackness to it. There's some in the vocals a little bit, and in the way that they, I think where a death metal band might get a little kind of musical or add a little bit of melody or something, these guys kind of tend to hammer away at some more power chord kind of riffs, and in that I think that makes it a little bit more kind of a blackened sort of feel to it. And lyrically, they get a little bit kind of out of the realm of gore and torture and shit like that. But they're really painfully mediocre. They put out a couple of albums, and they were okay for what they were. They just kind of came up at a time where there were too many bands really flooding the metal world with this kind of stuff. So, also, this has a shitload of songs on it. I've never noticed that. 13 tracks on a death metal record? I don't know. Yeah, not a whole lot to write home about. On the contrary, though, we've got Dyzma with Toward the Megalith. Killer, new school, old school kind of death metal band from New Jersey. You all ought to know this, guys. Profound Lore put this out. Kind of wondering what's up with these guys. I think they did an EP last year or so, but I don't know. This isn't the kind of band I would necessarily buy everything from, so looking forward to a new full length. Craig Pollard on vocals. Daryl Kahan on guitar. Daryl Kahan is from not far from where I live, originally. An Iowan-born boy. Never was a fan of his band Bazagorath. What is up with those guys? Next we've got Dismal fucking Euphony with Soria Moria Slalt. This is some Norwegian, I'm gonna hesitate, but call it black metal. It's not really black metal, but it's kind of not really anything else than that. It's really trying to be like symphonic, and honestly, these guys were best suited when they kind of, I think, lived up to what they were trying to do once they hit their bad period and got signed to Nuclear Blast. But this is their debut full length on Napalm Records. And while it's charming and kind of memorable for being maybe kind of like a Norwegian Cradle of Filth or something, it's kind of terribly produced. The guitars are just really weak in the mix. When's the last time you saw a band photo that wretched? Or how about this? I don't know if this will come through here, but man, the days of these days are so innocent when you look back upon these days. So yeah, it's kind of vampiric. It's really keyboard heavy, trying to be really orchestral. Just not really well produced enough to make it great like it should have been. They did do a little bit better here on Autumn Leaves, The Rebellion, Autumn Leaves? The Rebellion of Tides, yeah. This is their second full length, also on Napalm. And they did have a little bit better maturity and songwriting on here, but not packaging, as you can see. This is the one I'm more familiar with. I've had this in my collection a lot longer. I actually bought this one just maybe last year or so. Just, you know, I was just kind of in the mood for something weird, and I think I might still buy their debut EP. I think it's self-titled, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this is a little bit more well done. The songwriting is a lot more watertight. It's pretty good. It's also a lot better produced than this debut. So, I don't know. Check it out if that sounds good to you. Yeah, Dismal Euphony. Next, we've got a band that I should have more material from, I guess. Like an Ever-Flowing Stream by the Almighty Dismember. Yeah, when it came to like the Swedish three, there was always Grave, Dismember, and Entombed. I was kind of more of a Grave fan, I think, when I was getting into metal. And honestly, it might weird you out to realize it, but Hating Life was my first Grave album. And I still, to this day, I kind of think that's not as bad of a record as you might think. And you know what, now that I think about it, I never even got around to getting a copy of Solus, which is fucking weird. But yeah, so like, I always felt like if you were into one of those bands, you kind of had enough. Back then, in like 97, 98, 99 or so. So I kind of dragged my feet, I guess, to getting around to getting into Dismember. And boy, I regret it. Like an Ever-Flowing Stream is a fucking death metal classic. You know, Sunlight Studios, of course. Not much to say about this to convince you that this is awesome. And then a couple of years ago, I'm still not exactly even fucking sure what happened, but I guess I somehow never got around to listening to Left Hand Path. Because I bought a copy of Left Hand Path, and it absolutely fucking flattened me for months. And it's because I had only heard Clandestine. I've had a copy of Clandestine forever and thought, I don't know, it just kind of sounds like shit. It's not that great. I even liked Entombed's Wolverine Blues, and the one after that, To Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak the Truth, was alright. Somehow, Left Hand Path just eluded me. So, it's just been kind of a weird relationship with me and those three bands, Grave, Entombed, and Dismember. If I see any Dismember album used, I'll probably pick it up. Actually, I used to have a copy of Massive Killing Capacity. It was like a promo sleeve version of it. I don't know whatever happened to it. Lately anymore, I go through my collection and it seems like I'm realizing how much stuff I've gotten rid of over the years, and I don't understand why. But next, so this is the most mediocre band there could possibly be. This is Disordered with Documentaries of Disgust. I figured, I do this quite often when I'm out CD shopping. $8, I'm pretty much in. Shitty logo, stupid gory album cover, stupid gory song titles, a label I've never heard of, Slaughterhouse Records, and I thought I probably had a gem on my hands, but boy was I wrong. This was a really bad move. I actually put this in a few minutes ago just to check it out again, and it is so bad. I don't really know what. These guys were trying to be probably something along the lines of Carcass, which kind of made me think about putting this Carcass tribute on. They wind up sounding kind of, maybe a little bit more modern. This came out in like 97, I think it was. Got a GeoCities website on there. They wind up sounding something kind of like maybe Mortal Decay or Sepsism or Deaden or something kind of like that. Just kind of like shitty but funny and kind of not worth listening to. But for something completely different, Dissecting Table. This came out on release on 97. And this album is Human Breeding. I picked this up in Utah, funny enough. I don't know what I was fucking doing in Utah anyways, but they had this at I don't know, was it Half Price Books or some shit? But this is a really interesting noise, I guess, is what most people would consider this, but this really has a lot of depth and layering and interesting textures to it. This is really one of my favorite noise albums, and I guess you could kind of say maybe, now that I give it some thought, this is maybe not too far removed from Skinny Puppy, but with the aggression just turned all the way up. And definitely just making no bones about the fact that this is noise. Abrasive, harsh, brutal, unnerving, nauseating noise. But the noise genre, to me, I think most of it is garbage, and the stuff that is good can be really, really good. And what it takes for me to get past the noise being garbage is when there's enough variety to it and enough thought put into making different kinds of noises to make it palatable and listenable and worth owning. And Dissecting Table is totally doing that for me. I have downloaded, I think, or streamed a couple other Dissecting Table albums, and they were pretty good. It's just that noise is the kind of thing, and this artist is the kind of thing where you kind of only need one album or so to reach for. Whereas, like, I wouldn't say Merzbow is worth owning a lot of Merzbow, but somehow I think I'm convinced that every Merzbow release that I hear anyways, I can honestly believe that it does sound different enough from other ones that I can say, all right, well, that was worth working on. The guy's a mastermind of noise as far as I'm concerned. So next, and this is going to close out the video, we got Dissection. A band. So we're going to start off with The Past is Alive. This wasn't their first release, but this is a collection of their previous old material. Just love that artwork on there. Necropolis put this out in 97, somewhere around there. Dissection is a band whose demos were very, very worth rehashing, reissuing, and keeping in print. Their early material was really, really good. And talk about a band that was just so influential and important to both the Swedish and Norwegian scenes. Notefight was in contact with bands from all over Europe, and probably even America too, as far as I know. But the guy was really a centerpiece of the scene, really through his whole life. The dude started out just being a musical fucking genius. There's somewhere on YouTube, I'll see if maybe I can find it, somebody unearthed this ancient LP where some Swedish entity brought a bunch of kids into a studio and said, play your original song and we'll record it, put it out on LP. And there's this recording of Notefight at probably 12 years old. And he had written this like kind of baby ooh smoochy smoochy kind of song. And it's fucking adorable. It's nothing short of charming and adorable. And it just goes to show that the guy was just born to write great music up until a certain point. And we'll get to that. But The Passive Alive is a collection. It's a plucked collection because it's not all of their early material. I kind of wish this had everything on it, so I didn't have to worry about those songs that are also on the first 7-inch. So, you know, they kind of lovingly curated this collection, but it's not everything. And the completist in me wants to have something that has everything on it. I do have like a bootleg 45 that has the severed into shreds stuff and all that, but this is a really, really killer release. Beautiful packaging, sounds fucking killer. That brings us to the debut, the Somberland on No Fashion. Absolutely one of the greatest metal records ever recorded. I don't know what more I can say. It's absolutely brilliant. It's teeming with decadent, memorable, melodic riffing. It has so much variety to it. The songwriting is just captivating. They just did such an amazing job, and I never really understood how much of the genius of Dissection on these early recordings was solely John Notefight or how well they worked as a band. It kind of seems like John Notefight and Ola Omen worked really well as a team, but I don't really know how much credit you could give Peter Palmdale for being a killer bass player or whatnot. I mean, he's good. Or Zwetsloot, who played on this one and went on to do Cardinal Sin. And if Cardinal Sin is any indication of his talent, he was a great songwriter. But I just don't know how much Notefight allowed the other members of Dissection to lend their craft or ideas to the music. But this is just an incredible debut, one of the most memorable and perfect debuts of all metal genre. This is kind of a weird hodgepodge version, by the way. I bought this, I don't know, I guess I ordered it from the record store back in 97, 98 or so. This is like a Japanese version or something. And my roommate had a copy of this as well. But I thought the coloration on the back of his was better than mine. So I stole the backside of his, which must have been an original, I'm guessing, because now I have it and it looks great. And even the coloration on this disc is kind of shitty. And you can see there's like a little Japanese logo on there. So, I don't know, this version is kind of weird. It's just kind of mine. But yeah, this record, this band, is so fucking flawless. Looks like they took the whole booklet and just translated it in Korean, actually. Yeah, God, I haven't opened this in a really long time. It looks like it's like the No Fashion version, and then the second half of the booklet is all in Korean. I wonder if this is even on Discogs. A little weird version of it, but yeah, this is old as far as I know. I just kind of wish that I wouldn't have, swapped the back sides of the CDs. Whatever, nerd shit. Who cares? This is a The End Records reissue of the Somberland. Had to pick this up. It is worth getting because there's a second CD of bonus material on it. There's also some extra band photos. And if for some reason Swano's original mix of the Somberland bothers you, there is a remastered version of the album on here. And on the bonus disc, we've got live recording from '95. We've got Into the Infinite Obscurity remastered. We've got a demo '92 version of this album, which has not all the songs on it, but that's remastered. A Grief Prophecy remastered, and a rehearsal, and the Satanized tracks, the 2 Satanized tracks that are on Dissection. Now, Satanized is a pre-Dissection band, and those guys went on to do Decameron and Dissection separately. So we've got nice artwork there. Kind of some redone, revamped band photos in here. So this is worth getting. I mean, I can't imagine you would have to pay much for it. And I found some guy selling this like on Relapse for $5 or something. So I was really stoked to get a copy of this. There's a little bit of liner notes in here. On the back, it looks like some tour dates. Not that there's a whole lot of live material on here. But these were reissued at the same time as the vinyl versions of them. And I think it was the first time that they got back into print after the 90s. Not sure when these reissues came out, but I've also got the Storm of the Light's Bane one. And so that brings us to Storm of the Light's Bane. Man, this album is probably my most listened to album of all time. I go back and forth between what my favorite record is. At the end of the day, what does it really fucking matter? Battles in the North, Storm of the Light's Bane, Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk. One of those three is my favorite record, pretty much any day you ask me. I think this album is more commercial. It is more polished. The songwriting is a little bit more gimmicky. I think Notvite was maybe reaching for, or kind of trying to invent his own sort of, maybe sort of Kiss influence, like rock gods kind of version of a death metal band. And I like that about it. I think it's charming. I think it's done so tastefully that it's not, it doesn't turn me off by any means. But also, I mean, it speaks to the quality of the album that I never get sick of this album. Every time I hear any second of music from this album, I just go, I gotta hear it all. I can play air drums to every second of this album flawlessly. I love this album to death. It's also one of the first albums metal albums that I ever heard back in '97 or so. So, I mean, having that imprint, the idea of what blackened death metal was in my mind so early on, I think paints my palette for metal, Swedish metal, black and death metal, even to this day. So that album is so fucking important to me. I also have it on LP. We'll get to that when we get to the vinyl in the year 2034. So this is the end reissue, or I guess Black Horizon Music, which was the imprint that Notvite had going during prison or after prison, I'm not sure. The End Records also did it. So this is also remastered. I don't know if it's remastered by Swano. I don't know. Look that up if you need to know. But there's a ton of extra bonus material on the second disc of this one as well. There's an alternative mix of the album, and one of those tracks showed up on the Death is Just the Beginning 4, 5, before the album came out, and that is awesome. There's a demo version of some of these songs as well, and the Where Did Angels Lie remastered for this version. So yeah, Where Did Angels Lie. This is a Shape CD. It's got a Tormentor cover on it. It's got a Slayer cover on it. Wow, I haven't looked at this in a really long time. This is actually deteriorating really bad. Man, that's a bummer. This is one of my kind of a prized thing there. I didn't know that this was a rotting CD. Good job, Nuclear Blast. Some CDs just do that, you know. But the Slayer cover on here of Antichrist is so good. Even the Elizabeth Bathory, the Tormentor song, is fucking great. I think it honestly it makes it sound like it's a Dissection song. It's got Son of the Morning, Feather Spell, and a demo version and an album version of Where Dead Angels Lie, like it should. Where Dead Angels Lie is my least favorite album or song on that album. It's the hit. It's just maybe, like I said his version of this kind of rock star version of Dissection was tastefully done, but I think that song in particular just kind of a little bit too far. That sing-along kind of chorus to it, what have you. So, that brings us to the point when Note Fight was an accomplice to murder. Man, I was so bummed out by that, and to this day, I kind of hesitate to talk as much as I would about Dissection because I just am not comfortable with promoting the music of a person who was an accomplice to a murder of a homosexual person. That to me is not something I agree with. So this is the only time I'm going to talk a whole lot about my love for Dissection. Yeah. So I don't know. At that point, I said goodbye to Dissection. You know, he got into the anti-cosmic shit. He was in with the misanthropic Luciferian order and all that shit. And I just thought it seemed like he and even some of his followers and fans and the bands that are influenced by him and the MLO and that kind of stuff, they seem to be kind of recreating their own sort of mythos. And like I kind of always thought that the point of being anti-Christian was to be free of any religion. And it seems like a lot of these guys in these orthodox black metal bands are just looking for a new religion. And I just think the whole point of fucking being a metalhead, being anti-Christian, is to be as far away from the shackles and constraints and expectations of those things as possible. So I lost most of my respect for Dissection, even at that point. Then he came out of prison and said, I'm going to do a record. Bard Faust Ethan is going to be my drummer. And I was like, all right, let's see what you got. I can't imagine. I don't know. I guess I was kind of stoked. But, you know, I just thought it seemed like all that time in prison he had spent just furthering his study and obsession with this fucking anti-cosmic fucking whatever stuff. And I didn't imagine that it was going to be worth a shit. So then we have Reign Chaos. Reign Chaos. I've recently come to know that it's pronounced Reign Chaos. Doesn't make it any better of an album title. But I just think it sucks. I've had so many friends try and beat that album over my head. And I don't know. I swear I think that I am shedding all of my expectations and leaving to the curb everything that I don't want to like about that record and listen to it objectively and take it for what it is. And it sounds like shit. It's written like shit. It's simplistic, stupid. It's got nothing to do with the talent that the man, you know, spent years writing on this kind of stuff. It just sucks. I'm not gonna expound much further than that, but I've tried. I try every once in a while, and it just blows. So the last one we got here is Live Legacy. This is the Dissection live album, and it's not very great. One of my favorite things about Dissection is the playing of Ole Omen. And if I'm not mistaken on here, this is when Tobias Kjellgren was in the band. Cheesy album cover, just doing more of what was on. Yeah, Tobias Kjellgren plays on this one. His playing is a lot more plotty, a lot less finesse to his playing. It just kind of seems like he was a little bit more reluctant to play the parts. It just didn't really come through very well for me. But you know, it's a live dissection album, what have you. I never got to see him live. Kind of always wished I would have, but the guy's dead, so whatever. No more pissy albums from the guy. Alright, so that is it. Let's get into some other stuff. What have you been listening to? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for, but hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.